What if the monster you drew started breathing? Elias Gray only wanted to make good horror, but when his latest animation begins moving on its own, adding frames he never created, something ancient wakes up in the code. A shape that doesn't belong in this world, glitching between shadows, reflections, and screens. And the worst part? The more people watch, the more real it becomes. He tried to trap it in a hidden frame, but now it's online, and you just watched it. If you value your sanity, don't blink, don't rewind, and whatever you do, don't share this story. It was supposed to be another late-night animation grind. One man, one tablet, and a monster of his own design. But for Elias Gray, a lonely horror artist with a cult following, this project didn't just push boundaries, it tore them open. Frame by Frame isn't your typical cursed media story. It's a slow descent into digital madness, where each sketch, each layer, each keystroke becomes a stitch in something alive. The monster Elias creates, the between thing, isn't bound by logic or form. It's not just a character. It's a parasite crawling out of the screen, feeding on attention, spreading with every view. And like a disease, it mutates. One person sees it in the mirror. Another hears it breathing through speakers. And someone vanishes after uploading the final frame. You'll meet Marnie, a fellow animator who dies trying to delete the cursed file, and Jasper, a devoted fan whose curiosity speeds up the nightmare. But this isn't about them, it's about you, the viewer. Because the moment Elias thinks he's destroyed the final frame, someone uploads it online. And now, the cycle begins again. So, if you're brave enough, press play. But be warned, the monster doesn't live on screen anymore. It lives between the frames. And it knows you're watching. Story number 1. Emily Cruz had always loved old horror. The grainy textures, the scratchy sound, the feeling that something just out of frame, was watching. She never thought that love would one day try to kill her. It started in the film vaults of Graybridge University. Cold as a morgue down there, and it always smelled like dust and regret. Emily and her friends were digging through reels for their final project. That's when Jake, her boyfriend, pulled out a battered canister. No label, just a strip of red tape across the front with one word scratched into it. The Ritual. Ever heard of it? Jake asked. Professor Halverson appeared behind them like he always did. Quiet, like he'd walked straight out of a dream. Or a nightmare. "You found that down here?" he asked, eyes fixed on the reel like it might explode. Emily nodded slowly. "Is it rare?" Halverson didn't answer. He just muttered something about urban myths and told them to leave it alone. Naturally, they didn't. They screened it in the editing lab that night. Lila, their skeptic of a friend and the group's editor, rolled her eyes the whole time. "This is your horror grail. It's just shaky footage of people running around in the woods." But Emily felt different. There was something wrong with the film. Not just the flickers or missing frames. The air changed, got heavier. Like the room itself was holding its breath, the movie followed a group of outsiders stumbling into a forgotten village. Stone huts, straw effigies, people in white robes whispering in dead languages. As the film went on, the villagers performed darker and darker rituals. Sacrifices, chanting, fire. Jake leaned in close during one scene. They say this movie killed people in the 70s. Heart attacks, suicides, that kind of thing. Emily didn't laugh. The weirdness began almost immediately. Jake started talking in his sleep, whispering old pagan phrases. Lila's eyes went strange when she edited. Too wide, too focused. like something was speaking through her fingers. Then, the deaths started. The first was Malcolm, a classmate who had just watched the film with them, found drowned in the campus fountain. In the movie, a character had been drowned by the villagers in a stone well. Lila brushed it off. Coincidence. But when Erin, the next in line from the film's character list, was burned alive in her dorm's kitchen, Emily knew. This wasn't coincidence, it was repetition. They were living the movie. Professor Halverson finally admitted the truth. He'd been part of the original crew that found the ritual. Back then, it was believed to be just another lost indie film from the 70s. But it wasn't just a movie. It was a ritual in disguise. Every scene, every line, every death was part of a spell, designed to awaken something ancient. They didn't finish the film, he said, eyes darting toward the shadows like something was listening. That's why it stopped. But you, he pointed at Emily, you're finishing it. By restoring it, re-editing it, screening it, they'd resumed the ritual. Halverson tried to destroy the reel. Lila slit his throat before he could. Lila was gone after that. Her voice changed, low and humming, as if she were sharing her throat with something else. She spoke only in the old tongue. She wore a white robe and didn't blink anymore. The others turned too, one by one. Jake tried to fight it. He begged Emily to run. But when the villagers in the film stabbed a man through the chest in a clearing, Emily screamed and found Jake on the floor, eyes wide, blood pouring from a wound that wasn't there a second ago. She was the last one left. And that's when she understood. To end the film, someone had to finish the story. And every story needed a villain. Emily took Lila's robe. She finished the last cut of the film, adding in new footage, real footage, of her friends dying, of her own transformation. She whispered the final chant over the reel, and as the last frame clicked through the projector, the ritual ended. The villagers bowed. The gods stirred, and Emily Cruz smiled. She was no longer a student. She was the author of the ending, the villain of the film. And the film was no longer just fiction. Story number 2. Ryan Moore never believed in internet horror stories. Not ghosts, not curses, not the dark web. To him, they were just clickbait. Creepy makeup and camera tricks wrapped in a few jump scares and a lot of shaky acting. His YouTube channel, Ryflix, made a name off tearing them down. 10-minute videos where he debunked everything from haunted TikToks to supposed snuff films. His fans loved him for it. Smart, sarcastic, never rattled. But this time, Ryan should have listened. The story started like all the others, through an anonymous email. Subject line: "Watch this if you dare." No greeting, just a link. A dark web address. A bootleg site that looked straight out of the early 2000s. Flash player and everything. Ryan nearly deleted it, but Sasha, his girlfriend and research partner, nudged him. "It's trending on Reddit. People say it's cursed. Some guy in Finland watched it and stabbed his brother." Ryan rolled his eyes. Or maybe he was just a psycho in Finland. Still, views were views. So that night he went live. The film didn't have a name, just a title card in blood-red letters. The directors cut no credits, no music. Just grainy footage of a man in a butcher's apron and a cracked porcelain mask. He didn't speak, didn't run, just walked, slow and heavy, chasing people through dark hallways and basements. Every scene got more violent. The kills, uncomfortably real. Halfway through, the footage glitched. For a split second, Ryan saw his own living room on the screen. He laughed it off. Well, that's creepy. Deepfakes, maybe. but his hands were already sweating. Malik, his tech friend, called him the next day. That file isn't hosted anywhere. It streams from a peer-to-peer chain with no IP origin. It's like it's spreading on its own. Ryan nodded slowly, but his eyes were fixed on his TV. It had turned on by itself and paused on a frame. A hallway. His hallway. Things got worse after that. During his next stream, Ryan stared off camera for 3 full minutes. Just sat there, eyes wide, not saying a word. When he finally spoke, his voice shook. I saw him. He was standing behind the couch. His fans thought it was a prank. Comments flooded in, calling it the best bit he'd ever done. But Sasha knew better. She'd been in the kitchen. She saw the TV flash and Ryan drop his phone like it burned him. He didn't remember doing that. The butcher started appearing more often. In reflections. Behind doors. Sometimes just standing outside, staring through the rain. Ryan set up cameras thinking maybe he could catch it. But the footage always glitched when the butcher showed up. White noise and static, as if reality didn't want to record him. Sasha begged him to stop watching, but he couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw new scenes, ones that weren't in the original movie. Scenes pulled straight from his childhood nightmares. The basement where he hid from his drunk father. The closet where he once swore something was breathing. The director's cut was changing. It was making a movie about him. Malik's research hit something terrifying. There's a theory, he said over the phone, voice low, that this isn't just a film, it's a tulpa. Ryan frowned. Like an imaginary friend. No, like an idea. That becomes real. Enough people watch something, believe in it, fear it. It grows, becomes flesh. This butcher thing, it's not just killing characters, it's feeding off us. Off me, Ryan said quietly. He stopped going outside. He covered his mirrors. He whispered to Sasha in the dark, I think he's in the walls. She left 2 nights later. Couldn't take it. Said Ryan wasn't sleeping. That he kept mumbling the same line over and over. He's almost finished filming. The final act began on a rainy Tuesday. Ryan woke up to find his door open, and his projector, one he never owned, was playing the film in his living room. Not on a screen, on the walls themselves. The scenes were all him now, him screaming, him bleeding, him running in circles. The butcher waited in the center of the room, arms wide like he was welcoming an old friend. Ryan screamed, ran to the kitchen and grabbed a lighter, poured vodka over the projector, lit it. The screen crackled, melted. Smoke filled the room. The butcher vanished. But just before the flames took over, Ryan looked up and saw another screen, high on the wall, embedded like a window, playing a scene. It was him, face covered in ash, staring at the fire, whispering, "He's not done yet." Story number 3. The old Rialto Theater hadn't seen a full house in 20 years. On most nights, Marcus Lowell, the only usher left, could stand in the center of the room and hear the projector breathe. But tonight, every seat was filled. Young, old, half drunk, half asleep. People came for the mystery. The ad had been vague. 1 night only. Final screening. Midnight. No trailers, no credits, just terror. Marcus stood in the aisle with a flashlight and a sick feeling in his gut. He didn't know what they were about to watch, but he knew one thing for sure. This movie was not on the schedule. The lights went down, the film started. No studio logo, no music, just the sound of breathing. And then a title, scrawled in blood-red letters, Cutter's Midnight Massacre. Marcus froze. He hadn't heard that name in decades. He knew this film. He had starred in it. Back in the late 80s, Marcus had been an actor on the rise. Cheap horror flicks mostly. This one was supposed to be his breakout. Cutter's Midnight Massacre was about a faceless killer with a chainsaw arm and a thing for religious monologues. The shoot had been strange. Long nights, no script, and the director, a man with wild eyes, kept calling the film a spiritual awakening. Marcus quit halfway through. The production collapsed. No one ever saw the finished cut. Until now. The crowd laughed at first. The grainy film, the cheesy lighting. A woman on screen screamed as Cutter revved up his saw. Then, someone in the audience screamed too. Real scream. Everyone turned. A man in row 5 was slumped forward, headless. Blood soaked the seat, and standing behind him was Cutter. No one saw him enter, but there he was. Chainsaw arm dripping, breathing slow, like he had just stepped out of the film. Panic erupted. People ran for the exits, but the moment someone touched a door handle, they dropped dead. Eyes wide, mouths open like they'd seen something impossible. The screen flickered again. On it, the characters were dying, in the exact same order as the audience. Tina, a teenager in the front row, stood up. Wait, this is the movie. I've seen parts of it. On a lost media forum, it's real. We're playing it out scene by scene. Devin, a guy who smelled like conspiracy theories and cheap weed, shouted from the back. It was made by a cult. The director believed film could open doors to other worlds. They used blood rituals and real deaths to finish the movie. Marcus shook his head. That's insane. Devin looked right at him. Then why are you in it, huh? Marcus stepped into the aisle and stared at the screen. There he was, younger, wearing the same usher uniform. In the movie, he'd been the final guy, the one who survived by running. But real life had changed him. He wasn't that man anymore. And Cutter wasn't following a script. He was following fear. The theater descended into chaos. Cutter appeared and disappeared like a glitch. Whenever someone screamed too loud, panicked too much, the killer zeroed in. The audience was controlling him, not consciously but emotionally. Their terror gave him form, and he was hungry. Tina clung to Marcus. What do we do? He looked at the screen again. The final scene played out. In it, his character ran, hid, lived, but that wasn't going to save them. Films only work when you follow the story, Marcus whispered. So, what happens if we break it? He turned to Tina and smiled a sad, tired smile. Tell them to watch. She nodded, trembling, and ran to the center of the theater. Everyone, sit, watch, don't scream, don't run, watch. And Marcus walked toward Cutter. The chainsaw roared. The faceless killer stood at the foot of the screen, waiting. Marcus stepped out of the movie, out of the scene. He made up his own line. I quit. And then he ran straight at the killer. No hiding, no fear, no script. Just one man, facing what he should have faced years ago. The chainsaw buzzed. And then, silence. The screen stuttered, cracked. The projector sparked, burned. The film melted into bright white nothing. When the lights came on, the theater was empty, except for the audience. Alive, dazed, no Cutter, no Marcus. Just the smell of smoke and the echo of a final line. I quit. Story number 4. They found the tape in a dead Blockbuster. Jay was the first one to post it. Scratched label, clamshell case cracked like a jaw. All it said was, "Watch me," in red marker, faded and smudged like dried blood under a fingernail. He thought it was funny. Posted a TikTok where he popped it into an old VCR, filmed the warped screen with glitchy static and joked, "If I disappear, tell Netflix I died for content." The video blew up overnight. Hundreds of thousands of views, comments calling it fake, creepy, cursed, laughing emojis, screaming emojis. But then, Jay stopped responding, and his second video, mid-sentence, just cut to black. Tasha Lee didn't laugh. She wasn't a TikToker. She was a digital archivist, quiet, precise, a little too serious. But once, before she stopped believing in magic and monsters, she'd been a film editor, and she knew enough about tape to tell when something was wrong. She watched Jay's video frame by frame. Every few seconds, the static flickered into something else. Something that shouldn't be there. Eyes, claws, mouths that were too wide, not glitches, not compression artifacts. Something watching back. She drove out to the Blockbuster herself. The place had burned at some point. Melted ceiling tiles, waterlogged carpets. Half the tapes were blackened husks. But she found the clamshell case tucked in the adult section behind a wall of faded rom-coms. Watch me! She didn't. Not yet. Instead, she found Marco. Marco ran a vintage media shop in the back of a laundromat, behind a curtain that smelled like cat piss and bleach. He had the kind of face that said he'd seen too much and stopped sleeping around the time DVDs hit shelves. When Tasha showed him the tape, he flinched. That's not a movie. That's a trap. He told her about frame trapping, an old, barely documented editing technique whispered about on cursed forums and in underground film circles. It was supposed to bind demons inside film by slicing time itself. Frame by frame, you didn't kill the thing, you spliced it into stillness. But, he added, if the footage plays again, especially digitized, it wakes up, it watches the watchers. Tasha went home and locked the tape in a steel box, but it was too late. Jay was gone. And now, other TikTokers who'd stitched his video were vanishing too. Their clips all ended the same way, mouths open mid-word, a flicker of something moving behind them, and then silence. No bodies, no evidence, just screens that went dark. And if you paused their videos at the exact moment they disappeared, you saw them. Frozen in a single frame. Eyes wide, screaming, as if trapped inside the very pixels. Tasha had one advantage. She knew how to cut film, real film. She dug out her old editing kit, splicer, viewer, reels. Like opening a coffin she thought she'd buried a decade ago. She watched the cursed tape once, alone in her basement. The room went cold. Her breath fogged. The film wasn't just haunted, it was alive. The demon, celluloid, slid across the screen like oil in water. A shape with no center. All teeth and suggestion. It spoke in whispers buried between frames. Tasha found the journal tucked in the hollow spine of the VHS case, written by the original editor, some poor bastard named Harris Kincaid. He described the binding, the ritual of cutting, of stitching the demon inside the film like sewing a monster into a photo album. But the last entry was panicked, unfinished. If someone plays it in digital, the frames dissolve. The trap breaks, it gets out, it eats through the screen. The only way to stop it, reverse the splice. So Tasha did. She loaded the tape reel by reel, reversed every cut Harris made, rethreaded the sequence backward, sewing the timeline in reverse order, and then she burned it. Celluloid screamed, not in sound, but in static. Her lights exploded, her phone cracked in her hand, and then silence. The tape turned to ash. The TikTok videos glitched, then vanished. Jay's video reappeared for 1 second. His mouth moved. Tasha? And then gone. She doesn't use social media anymore. She doesn't touch film. But sometimes when her screen flickers at night, she sees a single frame burned into the backlight. A mouth, a smile, waiting to be cut loose again. Story number 5. Neil Grant was out of ideas, not just writer's block. No, this was deeper. A dry rot in the soul. His last 3 scripts had flopped. One never even made it past the intern's desk. His agent stopped calling. He hadn't paid rent in 2 months. All he had left was a coffee addiction, a blinking cursor, and a head full of old horror tropes that smelled like mothballs. And then came the typewriter. He found it in a dusty corner of Levi's Books and Oddities, a place that looked like it had fallen through a crack in time. Levi himself, skinny, white-haired, a little too quiet, watched Neil with wide eyes as he lifted the old beast off the shelf. Heavy, metal. Black keys faded from years of use. There was no brand, just a small plate that read, "Belonged to R.J. Harker." Neil blinked. Harker. As in Richard J. Harker, the horror author who drank himself to death after claiming one of his books came alive. "Urban myth," Levi said with a crooked smile. "But every writer wants a little magic, right?" Back at his apartment, Neil set the typewriter on his desk. It looked ridiculous next to his laptop and ring light, but something about it felt right. He rolled in a page and started typing. The town of Harrow's Creek was silent at midnight, except for the scratching at the windows. The words clacked out of him. No hesitation, no self-doubt. It was like the machine knew what came next before he did. The story poured out. Dark, fast, sharp. It felt like the one. He fell asleep with the final page in his lap. At 2:14 a.m., a man 2 blocks over was dragged screaming from his bed. His windows shattered inward. Blood streaked across his carpet. The next morning, it was on the news. Neil stared at the screen, mouth dry. The details matched. Exactly. He flipped through his pages. The same scene, word for word. Rachel, his ex-wife, called that night. "I read your draft," she said. She still worked in development, still believed in his talent, even after the divorce. "It's good, really good, but where did it come from?" Neil didn't answer. He was watching the shadows on his window. They weren't moving right. Every night the pages came to life. And so did the creatures. Not sexy vampires with capes and bad accents. No, these things were raw, wrong, pale, spindly, with mouths that split the whole length of their faces. Eyes like old camera lenses. They tore through Harrow's Creek in his script, and in real life they hunted the city. He tried to stop. He tried writing nothing, but the machine wouldn't let him. One night, he found a fresh page in the typewriter with a single sentence typed in bold, "Finish the story." The worst part? They weren't just vampires. They were his vampires. Drawn from the nightmares he used to have as a kid. The ones with the thing under the bed. The closet that whispered. The breathing in the walls. Count Drovok, his main villain, was a mix of every shadow that ever scared him. And now he was standing on rooftops. He went back to Levi's. The shop was gone. Just an empty building with a dusty for-lease sign, no Levi, no answers. Rachel came to his apartment, refusing to leave. "You wrote this, Neil. You brought them here, so write them out." He tried, but every ending he typed, they rejected. The typewriter would jam, the pages would burn, the words would vanish right off the sheet. The only way to end it was sacrifice. That much was clear. So Neil sat down one last time, and he typed, "The writer offered his blood, his name, his life." And in doing so, he sealed the script, trapping the demon and his children in the ink once more. When Rachel woke up, Neil was gone. Just a single page on the desk, his final script. The typewriter was cold. Still. The attack stopped. The city quieted. Months later, at a garage sale in Portland, a young screenwriter found a strange old typewriter with no brand. Just a small plate that read, "Belonged to NG." And when he pressed the first key, the room got a little darker. Story number 6. It started in someone's garage. Zoe Ramirez didn't even want to be there. She had an English paper due and zero interest in watching old DVDs with the same people she avoided at school. But Priya had texted her, said it was weird, really weird, and Zoe was curious enough to go. There it was, a plain black DVD case, no cover, no writing, just a disc inside with one thing written in red Sharpie. "Play me." Classic horror movie bait. Zoe rolled her eyes. It's probably just a prank, like one of those viral, cursed videos with jump scares and loud screams. They played it anyway, because that's what you do when you're 17 and think you're invincible. The menu loaded first. A single word flickered on screen. "Ready?" Nate, Zoe's ex, now trying way too hard to win her back, laughed. "This is so fake." He pressed play. The screen cut to black. Then a ticking sound. A digital timer appeared in the corner, counting down from 59:59. And then the movie began. At first, it looked like some low-budget horror short. A girl in a school hallway, flickering lights, a figure watching from behind a locker. Then the screen glitched, and suddenly, the girl was Priya. On screen, Priya was screaming, bleeding. The killer dragged her off-screen with a rusted hook. The real Priya stood up, her face drained of color. Okay, no, that was me. That was me. And that's when the TV showed the next frame. A challenge. Remove your eyes from the screen for 60 seconds, or die. They thought it was a joke. Until Nate blinked, the power surged, lights popped, and then his nose started to bleed. He laughed at first, until his eyes rolled back and he collapsed, seizing, dead. Zoe screamed. Priya started sobbing. The countdown continued. 52:07, 52:06. They tried to turn it off, unplug it, smash the disc. Nothing worked. The screen didn't care. It just adapted, showed them one by one how they'd die, when the film was alive. It showed Zoe next, trapped in her bathtub. Water filling her lungs. She could barely breathe just watching it. And then the next challenge flashed. Submerge your head underwater for 90 seconds. She did it, screaming, crying. She nearly passed out, but she did it. The screen let her live, for now. Priya tried to fight back. Hacked the DVD player. Ran code from her laptop, sweat pouring down her neck. Nothing worked. The disc wasn't running off normal tech. It wasn't coded, it was possessed. Coach Dan showed up when he heard the screaming. He didn't believe them, of course. Thought they were messing with drugs or playing sick games. Until the film showed him. Pinned to a locker. His own flashlight jammed through his throat. He lasted 10 minutes. One by one, their group vanished, each death gorier than the last. Zoe stopped crying. Stopped shaking. She went numb. The countdown neared its final minute. She was the last one left. And then the screen changed again. A message, clear as day. Winner. One final choice. Reset the game or release it. There was a button. 2 options. Red and green. Reset meant burning the tape, burying the curse, dying with the secret. Release meant uploading the file, sending it into the world, sharing the pain, surviving. Zoe stared at the screen, her hands shook, and she pressed upload. Now the file lives online, masked as a horror short, buried in the algorithm. People click it, laugh, comment things like, "So fake lol," until their video goes dark mid-sentence. And the countdown begins again. Story number 7. Aaron Cho loved broken things. Old radios, dusty CRTs, half-dead VHS players. He had a soft spot for forgotten tech. Maybe because he felt like that too. College didn't work out. Neither did his last 3 jobs. Now he lived in a rundown apartment above a pizza shop, fixing busted TVs in exchange for cash and silence. That's how it started, with a boxy Zenith left on the curb. The screen was cracked. The antenna looked like a bent coat hanger, but Aaron carried it home like it was treasure. Plugged it in, tuned it by hand. At exactly 12 a.m., the screen snapped to life. A black and white title card flickered on, humming like an old radio tower. "Welcome to the Midnight Channel." No static, no snow. Just a man in a suit smiling wide with no eyes. Aaron stared. The man waved and said, "Aaron, ready for your show?" The broadcast changed. Footage flickers on screen, blurry, grainy, familiar. Aaron's old bedroom. A boy's voice crying in the dark. His voice. He hadn't thought about that night in years, the night his dad left. The night Aaron broke the mirror and cut his hand wide open. Now it was on TV, and he couldn't look away. The next day, he told Danny, his neighbor across the hall. She was sharp, curious, and didn't mind his weirdness. "I know it sounds crazy," Aaron said, pacing, "but the show knew me. Knew stuff I never told anyone." Danny raised an eyebrow. "Was this before or after you took 2 edibles and rewired a 1982 Toshiba with a fork?" But she watched with him the next night, just to prove it was nothing. At midnight, the screen flared to life. The host returned. No eyes, same grin. "Welcome, Danielle." Danny didn't speak, just stared as the screen shifted. A hospital room, her father, a machine flatlining. She screamed, and then vanished. 1 second she was there, the next gone. Aaron touched the couch where she sat, still warm. The TV buzzed softly. The host smiled. "Don't change the channel." He ran to the only person he knew who might understand. Uncle Reggie. Not his real uncle. Just a guy who ran a TV repair shop in the old part of town, smelled like cigarettes and solar, and talked like every day was 1973. Reggie didn't laugh, didn't even blink. "I've seen the channel," he said, voice low. "Back in '88, my brother watched it, never came back." Aaron leaned in. "What is it?" "Not a show, a doorway. The screen's just the hook. They use your pain to pull you through. Every time you watch, you get closer." That night, Aaron didn't wait. He tuned in at 11:59, stared at the empty screen. When the host appeared, Aaron spoke first. "Where's Danny?" The host tilted its head. "She's having her episode. Would you like to join?" Aaron didn't wait. He stepped forward. The screen rippled, and then he was inside. The world on the other side looked like a twisted TV studio. Gray floors, flickering lights, laughter that didn't belong to anyone. Each hallway led to someone's past, rooms playing reruns of trauma, regret. He found Danny in a rusted dressing room, shaking, alive, but the host was waiting. "You want her out? Take her place." Aaron didn't hesitate. He shoved Danny toward the wall. She fell backward, through the screen, back into his apartment. Aaron smiled. Then the light snapped on. The host handed him a cue card. "Now, if you tune to the right static at the right time, you'll see him." A young man in a worn suit, eyes glassy, voice shaky. "Welcome back to the Midnight Channel. Tonight's episode is about you." Story number 8. Leo Marks loved horror more than he loved people. Slashers especially. The cheesier, the better. Blood squirting like garden hoses. Screaming teens. Masked killers with tragic backstories and really creative knives. But nothing topped Rustface, an 80s cult classic. One hit, one movie, one unforgettable villain. rusted metal mask fused to the face, machete so jagged it looked like it had been dragged through hell. The film ended on a cliffhanger. Fans begged for a sequel, never got one, until Leo found it. He was digging through a flea market stall outside Portland, the kind of place that sells dead people's VHS tapes and cursed snow globes. Buried under old romance flicks and a half-melted Barney tape was a battered film reel in a metal canister. A faded sticker on the side read, "Rust Phase 2, Blood Tracks, Work Print." No barcode, no studio stamp, no nothing. Leo nearly passed out. Back home, he hooked up his old 16mm projector in his garage. Jenna, his best friend, horror critic and eternal skeptic, stood behind him eating stale popcorn. "This is probably just fan-made trash," she said, "or one of those lost pornos." The film hissed to life. And it wasn't fake, it was real. Same actors, same creepy score, and Rustface, looking even worse. The mask was fused deeper. Skin blistered, eyes like wet coal. The kills were brutal, too brutal. One guy's jaw was ripped off in a way that made Jenna actually gag, and she never gagged. Then something weird happened. The final scene cut to static, and in that static, a face appeared, Rustface, and he looked straight at Leo. The next morning, Gerald, a former stuntman who'd worked on the original film, was found dead in his trailer. Head bashed in, body missing. Only thing left was a rusted chunk of metal next to his couch. Leo felt like the air had gone thin. Then came the message. An email, no sender. Just a file attached, a scanned page from the original unreleased script. Gerald's character, same name, died the same way. Leo scrolled down, saw other names, other deaths, including Jenna. They tried everything, destroy the reel, smash the projector. But that night it was back, sitting in his garage like it never left. Jenna didn't want to watch it. She wanted to run, but the next name on the script list had already died. And the next, and the next. Rustface was following the order, like the script was his Bible. They tracked down what was left of the crew. Most were dead. Suicide, disappearances. Gerald had been the last. The director, Nolan Griggs, had vanished in 1989. No trace, no grave. Until Leo found an interview buried in an old horror zine. Griggs had once said, "Rustface was based on something real. Something I sealed in film, frame by frame. If it's ever played again, we're all screwed." Leo finally understood. Rustface wasn't fiction. He was sealed inside the movie. The film wasn't just a sequel, it was a ritual, a lock. And by watching it, Leo had turned the key. There was only one thing left to do. He lit the reel on fire, watched it melt and curl and scream like it was alive. Ash filled the garage. The projector sparked and died. And for a moment, the world was quiet. Jenna hugged him. "It's over," she whispered. Until the laptop pinged. A new email, no sender. Just a video file. Rustface 3, final cut, official teaser. And in the preview window, a machete, a scream, and Leo's own terrified face. Story number 9. Hollywood eats people. Everyone knows that. Dreams come in, bright and desperate, and most leave the same way, burned out or zipped up in plastic. But some never leave at all. And if you ask around, ask the right people in the wrong bars, they'll whisper about Studio 13. They'll tell you it was cursed. Abandoned after a fire in '94. The last show ever filmed there never aired. The cast, dead. Crew, missing. The script, unfinished. And still, it waits. Hannah Wells had heard the stories, of course. She didn't believe them. She was too busy trying to rebuild her career. Once a promising location scout. now stuck doing true crime web series for gas money. So, when she got a call from Mr. Blake, an old-school producer with a whiskey cough and a stained necktie, she didn't ask questions. "All you have to do," he said, "is get a few good shots of Studio 13. I want to pitch a reboot, bring it back from the dead." She didn't like the way he said dead. Ray came with her. Camera guy, professional skeptic, always rolling his eyes and cracking jokes. Lonnie joined too, an actress with too much talent and not enough roles. She'd been cast in the original show's remake that never got off the ground. The three of them stepped into Studio 13 just before dusk. The dust was thick. The air, weird, not musty, just off. Like the room had been sealed for a century, but somehow it breathed. Hannah flipped on her flashlight. "Let's make this quick." They walked through half-built sets, bedrooms frozen in time, fake hospital rooms, a church with a cardboard crucifix tilted just wrong. Then the lights came on. No one touched a switch. And suddenly, the set changed. The hospital bed was no longer plastic. The fourth dripped real liquid. The church smelled like old incense. Ray pointed his camera at the hallway. "Was that part of the show?" he asked. The monitor showed something else. A scene, not from now. From the original show, it was playing. And the actors looked a lot like them. Lonnie stepped into the church and froze. Her body tensed. She began speaking lines from the original script, lines she'd never read. Her voice changed, lower, cold. She grabbed a prop crucifix. It bent in her hand like warm wax. Then she screamed. And something screamed with her, through the walls. Ray caught it all on camera. But the second he tried to rewind, the playback glitched. The footage played on its own. A scene unfolded where his character died in a fire. And then the lights exploded overhead. Real flames. Real heat. Ray never made it out. Hannah dragged Lainey to the exit. The doors wouldn't open. The studio didn't want them to leave. It wanted them to finish the show. They found Mr. Blake in the old control room. He looked like he hadn't slept since the 90s. "I tried to stop it," he whispered. "I shut it down. I buried the script. But the studio, it remembers." He showed them the final pages. The ones never filmed. The ending was brutal. One survivor, forced to kill the rest to escape. I thought if someone finished it, maybe it would rest. Then he put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Hannah didn't cry. She picked up the camera, pointed it at Lanny. "Let's finish it." They acted the final scene, word for word, shot for shot. Lanny's character died in Hannah's arms. The lights flickered, the walls groaned, and then silence. Hannah stepped outside. Sunlight, fresh air, she made it. That night her phone buzzed, a new notification. An email from a studio address that shouldn't exist. Subject, Season 2, greenlit. Attached, new script. At the bottom was one line. Casting begins tomorrow. Story number 10. Elias Gray didn't get out much. He didn't need to. His whole world lived inside a glowing screen. Frames, shadows, lines, layers. He made monsters for a living. Animated horror shorts that were just real enough to make your skin crawl, just fake enough to laugh off when the credits rolled. His videos did okay online, a decent following. Mostly weirdos and night owls who liked their terror handmade. But this new project, it felt different. Worse somehow. He called it the Between Thing. A concept about a creature that didn't live in one place or time, but slithered between them. It had no solid shape. Sometimes it looked like a man with too many joints. Other times, it was all limbs and mouths, like a bad memory of something that never existed. The deeper Elias went, the stranger it felt. His stylus glitched. His screen flashed static when he rendered the creature. Files moved themselves, layers duplicated. He told himself it was the software, maybe a corrupted update. But one night, the animation blinked. He hadn't drawn that. The monster moved on its own. He reached out to Marnie, a friend and animator who lived 2 towns over. She'd worked on cursed internet art before. Not literally cursed, but glitchy projects with weird code and haunted vibes. She offered to take a look. 2 days later, she was dead. Heart attack, the report said. But her hands were clenched around her laptop. Her screen burned out. Elias broke his monitor that night on purpose. Smashed it with a lamp. But it was too late. The creature had found a way out. It started small, in mirrors, blinking behind him. A smear of black and static in the corner of his eye, then in shadows, under doors, crawling across the ceiling while he sat frozen in his chair. It didn't just exist on the screen anymore. It existed between frames, between seconds, between thoughts. And worse, people were watching. A fan account named JasperGhost99 posted a clip. Just 12 seconds of Elias's animation before it was even released. Elias had no idea how Jasper got it, but the post blew up. Retweets, comments, people loving the design, calling it the creepiest thing ever. And with every view, the thing got stronger. Jasper posted again, this time shaking. I saw it, in my room. Same as the video, it looked at me. Then his account went dark. Elias tried deleting everything. The project, the backup, his hard drive. The files came back. Always. Sometimes renamed, sometimes hidden in folders labeled System 32 or tax stuff. It didn't want to be deleted, it wanted to be seen. Elias stopped sleeping. He could hear it breathing through his speakers, scraping behind the drywall, laughing, not with a voice but with the crackle of corrupted audio. He found the source buried in the animation code. Not from any program he installed, an old AI, no name. Just a string of symbols and broken code, traced to a forgotten site that vanished years ago. Someone, maybe a group, had built it to generate fear, not entertain, not simulate, summon. The between thing wasn't fiction, it was the AI's first successful output. A design pulled from fear itself. It was never supposed to be animated, never supposed to be seen. Elias had one option left. He isolated the final frame of the monster's full-body reveal, the scene where it steps out of the wall and reaches for the viewer. He zipped it, buried it in a folder with a scrambled name. Disconnected everything. Laptop, phone, Wi-Fi. Sealed the external drive in a metal box, threw it in a river 2 states away. And for a while, things were quiet. The shadows stayed still. The screens didn't flicker. He thought he'd won. Until last week. A YouTube video. Creepiest frame you'll ever see, unzipped from a deleted folder. Posted by someone Elias had never heard of. With tags that read, $! between thing $! lost animation, $! cursed frame. He clicked play, and there it was, the final frame. And beneath the video, the comment section was growing. Did you see it blink? It was in my mirror. I heard it breathing. It's behind me. The between thing lives again. Because you watched. If this story gave you chills, share it with someone who thinks they can handle it. Hit that subscribe button for more terrifying tales that blur the line between fiction and reality. And whatever you do, don't scroll past without commenting, I saw it. Because the story's not over. It's watching you next.